Hi, friends. Welcome to the Chronicles podcast. My name is Becca, and I haven't posted in a while, so this is what we are going to call season 2 of the podcast. This is something that's quite difficult for me, to be honest, because one of my New Year's resolutions, although I don't really do New Year's resolutions, was that I wanted to be more consistent with the podcast, and I had a plan for episodes that I was going to do in little series and trying to get guests on and things like that. However, life happens sometimes, and life has been happening quite a lot to an extent where right now I'm just not ready to fully openly talk about things on the podcast. To be honest, everything is still a mess in my head, and I don't even know how to put it together in a way that would be helpful for myself or even helpful for anybody else. I feel like it would end up it would end up just being like a total jumble. So here we are. It has been a couple of months since I posted a podcast, and I have actually got something recorded that has been sitting, and I've just not got around to editing it or finishing it off because there was things that I'd said and then stuff had changed and it didn't feel right to put it out because it felt unauthentic, and I was really kind of overthinking it. And then I've had a lot of task paralysis when it comes to the podcast because it is something that is really important to me. And like I said, I had that um goal for myself that I wanted to be more consistent with the podcast, and I did that with kind of social media and getting on top of posting on TikTok a bit too much, because then I ended up, I think, kind of being like shadow banned because all of my videos were only getting like 50, 60 views. But anyway, that then gave me a lack of motivation to then be posting on TikTok and scheduling things, so I didn't. And then just stuff has happened where it has been weighing quite a bit on me that I know that I need to record a podcast episode because I need to, for myself, for my own goals. This is something that, whilst being disabled, it takes up time, it gives me enjoyment, it helps me to have a voice when a lot of the time I've been silent or silenced. I think recently, whilst I've been struggling, those kind of old thought patterns have been sneaking back in where I feel like my voice isn't really important, and I know that that's not true. So, anyway, that little introduction and backstory on what has been happening with me and where I have been for season 2 of the podcast. I'm switching it up a little bit, to be honest. Recently, well, on the first season, I started talking about my accident, my recovery, the whole journey, and then I did episodes about living with the frame, representation for different disabilities, things that I found important, trying to talk about different disabilities. Whereas on season 2 of the podcast, this is going to be something that is less about my experience because it is something that I am struggling with right now and can't really speak about. So, like, I don't mean like I can't speak about it for any other reason than like I'm struggling with it, because just when I said it like that, it almost sounded like when people are talking about something and they're like, for legal reasons I can't disclose. That ain't it. I'm just all scrambled in my brain just now where it doesn't feel right to say things, and if I recorded a podcast I would probably end up cutting a lot of it out because it wouldn't make sense. And I've already went over this at the start of it, so you can see this has been a reoccurring loop that has been going round in my brain. But anyway, back to what I was saying. season 2 of the podcast, especially for today and the upcoming episodes, is going to be some Reddit stories still about disability, maybe about mental health, visible disabilities, physical disabilities. I am also looking for other stories, so if you have a story, feel free to send me it at cripplechroniclespod@gmail.com. This isn't something that I am planning on doing on the long term. Like, I don't want the podcast just to turn into me reading Reddit stories about disability, but I am also wanting to incorporate poetry into it. Poetry has been something that has been a massive help to me throughout all of my life, really, since I started struggling with my mental illness. And I have found a lot of poems in the past that have been helpful for me. I see a lot of stuff on Instagram. I've shared a few poems in one of my episodes that was really helpful for me. If you don't know, I may have mentioned it in previous episodes. In 2018, I actually released a book of my own poetry. You will not find it on Amazon or anything like that because I didn't list it there. I created my own website. I'd got them published, just like, not published, printed just by myself. Like, it was a very small thing, but I ended up selling like maybe 30 so of my books, and I have actually started going through them and labelling poems that I would like to read out on the podcast, and also kind of looking at them now and where I am kind of 5 to 8 years on from maybe when I first wrote those poems. So that is what it is going to be like for the foreseeable future, and then season 3 will be back and kind of like season 1, where it is more kind of what is going on in my life. I am wanting to talk more about kind of I am wanting to talk more about medical cannabis, getting a energy efficient wheelchair through the NHS, kind of struggling with disability, mental health kind of things. There is lots of things that I want to discuss, and I would like to discuss with other people by having other voices on the podcast. So hopefully in season 3 that will come to. But anyway, I am going to stop rambling, wrap up this intro for today, and get into the main podcast episode. I am hopefully going to be posting this podcast episode in the month of July, which is Disability Pride Month. And for Disability Pride Month, I sat and I wrote a bit of a poem. I'm hoping to put a kind of video together on Instagram looking at my recovery with a shorter version of the poem, but I thought I would start today's podcast off with my longer version of the poem that I wrote for Disability Pride Month, and then we will get into today's Am I the Asshole story, or I'm going to need to think of a better way to phrase that. Am I the a-hole? Am I the... Yeah, I'm just going to have to go with am I the a-hole, or yeah. But anyway, yes, let's see this poem. I have all of my stuff on my iPad today, so if I'm kind of looking down, that's what I'm doing. I'm looking at my iPad because it was just easier to sit and kind of do it there. And today as well, I had set everything up in the living room for me to record, and then I was hit with a wave of pain and it flared up really badly, and I took some meds and I sat for a bit and I really hoped it would get better. However, it didn't, so I am recording from my bed with my electric blanket on, giving some heat to where my pain is, and it is kind of helping. So let's hope it doesn't cause too many bothers, and yeah, poem time. Also, in the past few months since I have posted, I used to be terrible for drinking water. This isn't sponsored in any kind of way because this is out of my tap. And if you're listening and you have no idea what I'm talking about, I have a like 2 litre bottle. However, in the past few weeks since I bought this for like $4.99, what a bargain, I have been drinking so much more water. And this is a PSA for all our people out there who are on SSRIs, especially sertraline, and I can't remember the other one, but you are more prone to overheating. I know today in Glasgow it is roughly around about 18-19 degrees. I'm feeling a bit sweaty with my heat blanket on, and I'm not even on wow, I'm not even on any antidepressants. So if you are on some SSRIs, have a look up and see if heat impacts you more, because if it does, remember to stay hydrated, because you don't want to overheat and end up dehydrated, because you can end up pretty unwell with it. I'm not going to say too much because I don't know too much about it, but just have a look, see if your meds affect you in that kind of way. I am going to stop babbling, have a drink, and then read this poem. I'm clearly feeling a wee bit anxious because I have written poetry for a while. I have put a book out, but I've never really done spoken word, and I've done it on a podcast before, but this poem was wrote more as spoken word, and I feel like I'm just kind of getting in my head about it a wee bit. So I am going to say now, for like the second or third time, let me drink some water and I will get into this poem. God damn, Becca, can you see why I've taken a few months off recording? Because brain go woo woo. I decided that I would call this poem Beacon of Resilience. It was hard initially for me to think of disability pride, especially as for a long time I would have done anything to hide away. There are so many things I took for granted living in an able body, where for months I really thought that my broken bones would heal and I would go back to normal, back to work, back to being a nurse. That was my dream. I had worked so hard to get there, qualified for 2 weeks, then it slipped through my fingers like sand. Whenever I would leave the house with a frame on, I would feel like I had a beacon, alerting people of me, inviting them to intrude on my day. They'd gasp and ask what happened with a look of pity, sympathy, empathy. After uttering the words car accident, they'd be gone. The cage, the 40-odd pins. Surely it had to be something more crazy that had happened, right? Sometimes it felt like people were disappointed that I didn't have a more exciting story for my trauma. Please, even if you are curious, do not go up to somebody using a mobility aid and ask them what happened. Our medical history and trauma are none of your concern. If I need help, I will ask. I would scream if I had to. So please do not feel the need to swoop in and help when I do not need it. It took me a very long time to accept my disability, never mind feeling pride. The second frame I got, I spent hours alone in my hospital room trying to look under the covers, because I knew when my leg was fused, there was no going back, only forwards. I would be a lifelong patient. I would be physically disabled. I didn't know how I would have lived the quality of life I have now with a fused straight leg. Unfortunately, my leg could not sustain my weight. All of my hard work over 2.5 years snapped, along with my knee. I knew when it happened that amputation was the only way forward. And I even had an amputation celebration to say goodbye to my leg. As soon as I got in my wheelchair, I was doing wheelies with my friends telling me to be careful. I was discharged home and my walking progressed quickly in a short amount of time with my prosthetic. Then came problems after problems, and I took those setbacks on the chin. The quality of life I have in my wheelchair and hopping about is something I never could have imagined 5 years ago. Getting to 5 years on from my accident, still alive, amazing in itself. Looking through photos, I realise how much I've done, how much I've adapted, grown, changed. Most importantly, how much I love every version of myself through that process. Being physically disabled helped me to accept my mental illness, my autism. I was never too sensitive, too dramatic, too emotional. I was a dysregulated child, burnt out, overwhelmed, trying to mask and people please. Embracing my disability, learning the wheelchair skills that I did, meant that when one of my best friends became a wheelchair user, she knew she could do it because I could. There is so much acceptance from people around you when they clean the mud off of your wheelchair tires and help you to hobble up the stairs like you're in some kind of sitcom. Accepting myself as a whole was difficult but freeing. For so long, I tried to make everyone else happy. I threw myself into nursing, felt like I could make a difference, save people. I was miserable and I didn't know why. I'm proud of who I've become and all of the avenues I could have taken. I grew. In loving myself, it helps others to embrace themselves too. And that is so special. That, I think, has always been my purpose, clouded by trauma. My inner child could have never dreamed of this. Acceptance took time, but the more I accepted myself, the easier things became. I get to do so many things that with one leg feels like I'm doing them for the first time, an experience that most people never have. Heartache, pain, tears, anger, grief, loss, but I wouldn't change it. I am proud to be a badass, one-legged, disabled bitch, and I love that I can still explore, advocate for myself and others. I can be proud to be disabled whilst admitting that sometimes it is fucking hard. Sometimes it feels really bad and it is okay to complain. The world is not disability and that weight can feel extremely heavy. Happy Disability Pride Month. Remember, you can become disabled at any moment. Everyone is one bad day away from ending up as a wheelchair user or disabled in general. That felt so wild to read that out, and I feel like I did it exactly in the way I wanted to with only a few slip ups. So I hope you enjoyed hearing that, and yes, I am going to take a wee minute to have a bit more water because my throat is so dry, and then I will get onto the Reddit story, which is a good one for the starter because I found a 4-parter that has a happy ending to spoiler alert, sorry, but yeah, there's a happy ending and I read a few parts of it, like bits and pieces, and it just felt like a bit of a feel-good story. So yes, let me take a moment to have a drink and I will get into the Am I the A-hole story. Woo! Eh? The Am I the A-hole story is from r/AITAH and it is from a throwaway account. The first post was made 82 days ago and the most recent post was only a couple of days ago from when I found it, which was like last week, so only like a week ago. And the title of it is Am I the A-hole for breaking my number one sex rule with a handicapped guy? Obviously, throwaway. I don't need anyone here seeing my regular account. I'm also in the US and English is my first language, and any discrepancies are because I suck at typing on my phone. So, too long didn't read. For the give me the bare bones, I don't have all day to read on the shitter crew. My number one sex rule since high school has been no sex before the third date. I recently broke that rule with a handicapped guy, and now my childhood best friend is pissed and grossed out because she thinks I have some weird kind of fetish. Okay, context, full story. I'm a 28 female. My childhood best friend, we'll call her Jess, is also 28 female. To put it simply, I don't think I'm any kind of prude. I just don't feel comfortable with casual sex. Never have. My best friend knows this and has teased me about it lately in the past. She has been in a long term relationship for the last 3 years. I have mostly been single whilst working on my degree and starting my career. Jess lives in another state with her boyfriend, so we don't hang out much anymore. Well, from the way this story goes, I ain't surprised. So, about a month ago, I had a first date with a guy I'd been talking to for a bit. Though it was going places, he gave me weird vibes on the day and I cut and ran early. On my way home, I stopped at a local pub, figured I had a drink to unwind, and people watched till it wore off. Tipsy driving is still drunk driving, in my opinion. I get there and it's pretty packed, Friday night and all, and there was no seating room at the bar. Took my drink and looked around. Most of all of the restaurant side of the pub was somebody's birthday party, but there was a small table with a seat open off to the side, with a guy reading a book there, so I say F it. I'm a social person, and what's the worst that happens? He says no, so I ask if I can sit for a bit, and I promise we don't have to talk or anything. At this point, I feel like I've effed up because this guy up close is the hottest man I have ever seen. But he just smiled at me and gave me an enthusiastic sure. A few minutes later, of me sipping in silence, and he says, I don't mind talking if you want to. Yeah, I want to. Are you kidding me right now? We talk for a bit and it turns out Mike, fake name, is 29, has just finished his master's degree in some kind of computing field. I program computers to program computers, and he's living on his own for the first time. He apparently stops by the pub after work because he's right round the corner, and he's not used to silence yet after living so long with after living so long with half a dozen siblings. Jesus Christ, that was really hard for me to spit that one out there. That is a right tongue twister. We talked for a good 2 hours about everything from dating, which he said he's basically given up on, to hobbies and tastes, and we have near total eclipse of the Venn diagram on this stuff. I eventually sort of blurted out that I don't know why he'd given up on dating. This is the closest thing I have had to a good date in forever. Shooting my shot obliquely here, lol. He gets a kind of odd look in his face and says, Tell you what, I have to go to the bathroom, but when I come back, I'll ask you out for a real. Weird, but okay. Then it clicks, because he doesn't get up to walk away. He just rolls in his wheelchair, and I'm thinking, oh my god, he wanted to give me a chance to back out of this without making it awkward. How cute can this guy be? He grinned like crazy when he got back and saw I was still sitting there, and I basically tripped over myself saying something to the effect of, so I'm free all weekend, what did you have in mind? That kind of made me happy to read because, like, I feel like that smile on his face was probably because there's so many times where somebody has came up and maybe hasn't realised that he's sitting in a wheelchair and not in a seat, and then when they realise he's in a wheelchair they kind of back out, which I can see as kind of being a safety mechanism of like, I'll go to the toilet and give you a chance to leave so like my feelings don't get hurt, and so that you also know that I am in a wheelchair, but also that smile when he come back of just being like genuine of like, wow, yeah, she likes me even though I am disabled, which is a feeling that I get sometimes, and I feel like it's not a feeling I should have because I'm me and Jess, like my wheelchair is a part of me, it comes as a part of a deal. My disability is dynamic, I can do more things. more things on one day than another and then do less because I'm in too much pain. And sometimes I do feel like that is a lot for somebody to take on, and it can feel like it's too much sometimes. However, I have started to use the mantra, if I am too much, then go find less. And yes, let's get back to the story after me getting sidetracked on that wee bit, but that was just like a wee bit where I wanted to stop at, because I'm like, I can get that feeling sometimes if I'd like somebody had come up to me and then I would be like, okay, I'm just gonna like scoot to the toilet and I'll see you back here. Now that in my head is like, damn, that is something that I would do on a date, like if I just randomly met somebody, because I use apps and things like that that show I have a wheelchair. So like if somebody was not happy about the fact that I was in a wheelchair when I turned up to a date, I'd be like, what the fuck were you expecting? Like, hello. Anyway, yes, still sidetracked, Jesus. And this electric blanket is getting warm. Another hour later, we have plans for Saturday, and he told me he has neuromuscular disorder. I can't remember the name of it. My degree isn't in STEM, lol. So his legs work, but the signals from his brain get misinterpreted, so he doesn't have the balance or coordination for walking or standing. The pub starts to switch over to the younger, rowdier crowd, and he asks if I'd like to go back to his place for a coffee to continue our conversation. As you have probably long since realised, I did not get any coffee or conversation till the next morning, and I have zero regrets. We've been dating since, and I know it's still early, but I really feel like this might be the one. Onward to yesterday afternoon, my friend Jess, remember Jess, is in town and we go out for a coffee to catch up on things. I'm gushing about Mike, but when I get to how we met, she just sort of gets weird and edgy. I don't remember the exact words she said, but she essentially said that I must have a fetish for the handicapped since I broke my number one rule, and it's the best physical relationship I've ever been in. Like, it's good for me because he uses a wheelchair, not because the guy puts an effort in bed. She said I've changed as a person and left without even saying goodbye. 15 years of friendship and I've never seen her like that. So here I am asking the most objective people online, haha, if I am an a-hole or weird for being super attracted to a guy who uses a wheelchair and basically putting out immediately. Damn, like when I read this initially, it was like the end parts. So when I went back to this first one, I was at Eleanor's and I was like, damn, this story is wild. Like, she went on a date, it didn't go well, so she went for a drink to sober up, met another guy, went back to his, slept with him, like, and because she broke the number one rule, like, she wasn't going to meet that guy to go on a date, so it doesn't really matter anyway, because, like, it wasn't actually like a first date, so really it's just a random sexual encounter or like a one night stand if they didn't keep dating. But I mean, I guess like I was gonna say, even if you go for a date with somebody and sleep with them, it can be a one night stand. So like, I don't know. But yeah, I just thought it was a very odd thing for a friend to say, like, oh, you broke your number one rule and it must be the reason because the guy is in a wheelchair, not because he's attractive, has good chat, is charming, like all of these other things. But this is only the first part of 4 parts. I think I looked at some comments here. I only took a few from kind of each part, but the one I took here from this part is, she's got a weird fetish for super hot guys who are kind and well spoken and F like a hero. What a weirdo. Sarcasm in case it's not obvious. And the OP replied, okay, yeah, this made me laugh for real. Seriously, what a weird fetish I have. And then somebody else responded, hey, that's my fetish too. Here I was thinking I was the only one. So she got a bit of like jokey back and forth from the commenters. So she then did a part 2 2 days later, and she kind of linked to the previous post as well. And she started it off with, My first ever update, yay. So if you were hoping for some terrible drama, I hate to break it to you that I don't roll like that. No pun intended. So I do have an update on Jess, and shit finally perfectly makes sense. And I have a slightly NSFW, not safe for work, but funny story about Mike, because this guy is just the best. Okay, so first, I messaged Jess yesterday and basically said, I'm still hurt by what you said, but after 15 years of friendship, I never forgive myself if I didn't at least ask why you snapped at me like that. She replied immediately, I am so fucking sorry, I didn't mean any of that, can we have a do-over on lunch? So I agreed cautiously and took a half day to meet with her today. Turns out that those of you who said she was jealous and that she might have something else going on, and especially the person who said something might be going on in her relationship, gold stars. She's in town because she's job hunting, because she's moving back in with her parents for a while since her relationship has ended. Apparently, they have been having a ton of small problems adding up, but the biggest one, sex. Can see why she snapped. The guy she's been with was apparently never great, but it's gotten to the point where he's made no effort at all for her to enjoy herself and then gets pissed when she isn't in the mood. She's tried talking with him about it, making suggestions, but he told her recently that it's emasculating being given sexual advice by a woman. Bro, like, if you wanna have good boom boom with your woman or any partner, to be honest, take on the advice that they're fucking giving you. Like, not everybody is the same. You can't stick it in and just thrust a wee bit. Like, sometimes different people need different things to get off, so listen to what they're saying if they want to please your partner, and if you don't want to please your partner, then go get a fucking fleshlight or something like that. Anyway, back to the story. Where was I? The straw that broke the metaphorical camel's back, however, was that her boyfriend has always had a thing for Asian women. She's Caucasian, but since she does have long black hair, after weeks of fighting over their sex life, he suggested they spice things up by her dressing in a kimono and pretending to be Asian. She lost it on him and is absolutely disgusted by the racist fetishism and ended it right there. Holy shit. Okay, I can get why you would be touchy and kind of be like, this guy's trying to racially profile me because he likes one specific race of people, which is fucked if you are somebody who just dates one specific race of people. That's weird. Everybody can have preferences, but if, like, I don't know, I just think that is odd. So she had all of this bottled up and she was hoping to talk to me and finally be able to put it down, and I missed every hint that something big was to discuss because I was gushing about Mike. So to her it felt like I was twisting the knife by bragging about how great our sex was, and she snapped, and somewhere between what I was saying and what she wanted to talk about, somehow wires got crossed and she said something incredibly dumb. She left without saying goodbye because she was mortified and ashamed as well as irrationally mad at me. Something to know about Jess, she's an awful liar, and she and I were the co-founders of our high school's foot and mouth society, so I do believe her. I told her I forgive her, and she said I was too stupidly nice and have nothing to apologise for, so I do think we'll be okay. For the first time, I'm not ready for her. I need to go back and read that again. I've just got mumbled up there. For the time being, I'm not ready for her and Mike to meet because I don't want to make things feel worse, and she agrees. But she's really happy for me. Hopefully this is just a funny story we can look back on someday. So on how Mike almost killed me, lol. Last night we were talking about the Reddit post and he gets this funny expression like I'm starting to recognise, and he goes, how do we know that you don't have a fetish if we haven't at least attempted to try it in the chair? And I'm like, are you serious, lol? And he says, well, we've never attempted it because, cue tears, he's never felt comfortable with a partner before. Well, his chair has what is essentially like a parking brake thing, or should, or it should. It's unfortunately broken, and apparently getting them fixed is an expensive pain in the ass. He doesn't use it that often, so he hasn't made it a priority. And there's this thing called Newton's third law. You know how every action has an equal and opposite reaction. As it happens, when you're trying to sort of get the motion of the ocean going in the chair with wheels that aren't locked, there's a sort of counter motion that starts and fucks it all up. So we were going nowhere fast except for inching along the floor in his bedroom and laughing at all of the silliness, which isn't helping. Eventually he just stops and says, maybe we can get some of those wooden block things to keep the little planes from rolling away, like in the Indiana Jones, you know. I almost lost it, like laughing so hard I'm in tears. He's giggling half at the situation and half at my reaction, and everything just keeps setting me off again. Finally, I get it under control, doing some deep breathing exercises and shit, and I look at him again and he pulls me the straightest face he can and says, for the love of God, golly, this sure is uncomfortable. Folks, if I had asthma, I would have fucking died right there. I laughed so hard, I think I pulled a rib. Like wheezing, and he's not even laughing anymore, so much as weeping and making this awful hee noise when I could catch my breath. While he's laughing and rubbing my back, saying he's sorry, but he couldn't resist. So yeah, confirmed, no fetish here, and this magnificent bastard's comedic timing might actually kill me. I doubt I'll update again, because there's really nothing I can say needing to share, given everything sort of worked out. And in the end, the real assholes were the friends we made along the way. I don't know. Thanks for all of the lovely comments on my last post, and coming along with me on this absurd but brief drama in my life. That is so funny. Like, I can imagine. I'm sitting here looking at my wheelchair being like, yeah, I can imagine it not really working out, trying to do it when the brakes aren't working, because like she said, you would just be like inching across the floor. But I can see why our friend flipped out, kind of being like, you broke this rule, so you must have this fetish that you've never talked about, because my husband or boyfriend or whatever had a fetish and then tried to dress me up in a kimono so I would be Asian so that it would turn him on and we would have sex more, when the fact of the matter that was the issue was that he wasn't really arsed about pleasing her in the first place. So why the fuck is she going to dress up and like do some kind of racial role play when you aren't even going to make her finish? Like, what is the point, bro? Like, even then, I know I'm making a wee bit too much light of it, but I already kind of covered how I find it is fucked up. But I'm like, if you find it as what was it, demasculating to be given sexual advice from your partner, don't date. Like, you sound like you are an incel, to be honest. I have a few partners. No. I have a few comments on this post, which was honestly wholesome. Congrats on finding a great dude and best of luck to your friend. I love this update. I hope I love your friend and wish her the best, and I'm super proud of you for having the constitution to leave that asshole. What? I love your friend and wish her the best, and I am super proud of her for having the constitution to leave that asshole ex of hers and coming clean and apologising to you. I love you. I love Mike. And then another person said, I want this as a movie or a novel so bad. You are a pretty good writer. And OP said, thank you. I don't think it would sell though. There's no high stakes to spice up the drama. I'd have to make shit up, lol. This is like the beginning, but aliens invade or something. So then there is a part 3, even though she said she didn't think she would have to update or anything. Let's see. With all of my bumbling and rambling and getting sidetracked, I'm like 40 minutes into recording. So let's get through part 3 and part 4 and finish this episode off for the day, because I'm starting to mash my words up. So, update. Am I the asshole for breaking my sexual with a handicapped guy? Met his family. Hello again. I was going to post this on my own page, but a few people mentioned that they think it would be nice to read on AITAH. So F it. Here's the How I Met Mike's Family's update. And it is a doozy, or at least it felt like it at the time for a girl who grew up with a small dysfunctional family. So first up, you know what people, at least me, don't think about when dating a guy who's always sitting? Height. I know he's taller than me because we cuddle a lot, and he's taller sitting on the couch, but I didn't really get it. So we drive up on Friday night after work, actually south and west, lol. But to my brain, it's always up in his vehicle, which is modified to be driven entirely using his hands. Neat. Right, he's a really good driver too. One more green flag. I tried one of those hand control cars, or like I tried what it would be like to drive one when I went to my driving assessment, and it was not for me. I really just prefer having my little left foot accelerator, but like, yeah, hand controlled driving is a very common thing. Back to this little update. I keep losing where I am. I feel like I should get my pencil out and like drawing where I am. We get to the house and it's huge, guys. Lol. Like, not a mansion, just kind of a sprawling one-floor rancher. Real estate was wild back in the day. Anyway, we get out, I meet his mum, and I'd like to point out, I'm no slouch, I'm 5'7". His mum is towering over me, but she was the nicest lady ever. We go inside, I meet his dad, who is funny enough and is apparently the only short one in the family, and his younger sister, who is living there with his 1-year-old niece. She gets up to hug me, and she is also really tall. It's already a bit late then, so we eat and we head to bed. I get to see his cute ass shit room from when he was your teenager, and I casually ask, hey, so I don't know how this works and stuff, but how tall are you? And Mike is all, I don't know, like a bit over 6'4", been a while since I checked. A bit over 6'4". So, is everyone in your family tall? Kinda. We met the Nordic basketball team. He calls his family properly the next day. Actually, they're Irish, but they're blonde and tall, so it conveys the idea better. The only one of to resemble height and still taller than me was his older sister, lol. And they are also loud. Like, not really shouting or anything, usually just present. Mike is a lot different around them, but in the cutest way. Like, he just beams all the time, and you can see how happy he is to be home. One of his brothers put him in a headlock and gave him a damn noogie as a greeting and got elbowed in the side for it, and all of them were laughing. And his mum smacked one of his brothers with a rolled up magazine for putting his feet on the table, more laughing. Just intimidating, but in the happiest way imaginable. I'll admit, I was a little shut down for a bit, but Mike kept on checking in with me to make sure I was okay, and they were all really nice, so I got into the spirit of it after a bit. And I can definitely feel that coming from somewhere that's not really had a big family or like a lot of connections, or like always being around a large amount of family, like consistently. I do feel like really overwhelmed when there's like lots of people and they're all laughing and joking and getting on, so I can totally see how that would have been overwhelming and that she was feeling a bit shut down by it. Carrying on. I mentioned this in another comment, but Mike has a special sports wheelchair he uses for, well, sports. And he and his siblings play basketball, and he is good. Apart from just having a hell of an arm, he's quick as hell, and this magnificent bastard that I love will absolutely, purposefully, gleefully run over somebody's toes. He aims for it. They all have to yank back the foot manoeuvre, and it's hysterical to watch. So it was this crazy day of loud people playing and having a blast, nieces and nephews running around and just noise. My ears are still ringing. The food was catered in advance plans because his mum had 7 babies. All I make on Mother's Day is margaritas, and they all have a pool, and it was a bit chilly, but the pool is still heated, so we actually got to swim, which was a lot of fun because I love to show off that I too am athletic. I can do a backward somersault off a diving board. Yeah, I'm a real catch, lol. They at least pretended to be impressed. In the comments were, thanks for sharing. I read all of your posts and oh, I am melting. I needed that. And OP said, oh, I'm glad. I felt weird posting something that's kind of off topic from the original, but I've been told it helps cancel out some of the negativity, so why not? First commenter replied, it really does. You made me giggle and feel warm. Thanks for that. You both sound charming and delightful. Wishing you all the best. And OP said, I feel like I found my forever person. I never thought I'd experience that. Life is still life. But I feel like I changed my game settings to co-op and it's so much better to play through, and that is so bloody adorable. Like, oh. I read a comment there and I haven't even finished the story, so I'm gonna finish reading the story and then I'll read the other comments. This is getting chaotic now. It's getting near the end of me recording it. Wow. We stayed up late drinking and bitching that it was too overcast to see the aurora. Boo. And I had the worst hangover I've had in a while on Sunday. We slept in a bit late and then joined Mike's family for a barbecue. Part of the barbecue weekend, his dad can grill people and he's fast. Food coming off the grill at lightning speed. I asked Mike about it and he laughed and said, there was 7 of us to feed. Ever seen a nest of baby birds? He had practice, which, fair enough. I don't have much experience with babies, but I got to hold his youngest niece, the one living at home with his sis until her husband gets back from deployment, and we had a light talk about kids in the future. I told him that I never put much thought into it, but if they were going to grow up in a happy home like his and not how I grew up, I'm pretty sure I'd be open to having them with him someday. But later, I need him all to myself for a while first. He seemed really happy about that, which makes me feel all goofy and happy. I'm so sappy. We had to drive home Sunday night, but before we went, his mum hugged me and said she's never seen his son like this, and thanked me for taking good care of our baby, and asked if we'd be back for 4th of July, or if we'd be doing something with my family. I tried to be all, no, we'll be here if you don't mind, I don't see them much, and I think she caught on that there's more to the story, so she just hugged the shit out of me. Vikings, all of them, I swear, and told me that she can't wait to see me again. My ears are still ringing from all of the noise and chaos, but it was an absolute blast, and I can't wait to see them again in July. Also, pretty much sure Mike is a man I am going to marry. I literally can't think of a single reason I would ever let him get away. Anyway, thanks for reading, and I hope you have a lovely weekend. Somebody had said, not the asshole, sounds like you found a happy family to join. Good for you and Mike. And she'd said, it's still pretty surreal. The other in-laws that were there were all like that smiling, hanging guy meme. First time. It was a great weekend. I'm gonna need to find that meme and like put it on screen with this video because I have no idea what meme that is. Maybe if you're listening you do know. If you don't, you need to come to the podcast and find it. Somebody else said, this story is so heartwarming, it belongs on Best of Reddit Updates. Congratulations. At some parts I felt like I was reading about Roark family dynamics and one of the Nora Roberts, JD, Robs, Eve, Nalis, Jeez, oh, that's a very long word. Nora Roberts, J.D. Robs, Eve Dallas novels. The whole Irish family vibes were just there, so lovely. And then the OP said, aha, I don't think it's interesting enough for that, but I'm glad people are enjoying it. And then somebody had said, this is so goddamn cute. Reading this is like listening to one of my besties talk and it makes me want to have a pint of you. I'm so happy you're happy. Congrats. And OP responded, oh, thank you. It's funny, I never drink beer, but Mike figured out I hate bitter/hops, so he wants to plan a beer tasting weekend to introduce me to things that I might actually like. So maybe in the near future, I'll actually have a pint I like to share. And thank you, the support is overwhelming. I'm still feeling a bit weird about updating here because pretty sure I'm not the asshole now, lol. But I love making people happy, so if for the first time stories of my life make people happy, I am not going to shut up. and that just felt so lovely, to be honest. Like, that last comment really kind of sums it up. Like, reading it is so wholesome, it's so lovely, the relationship sounds so nice, and it really was just an off chance of meeting somebody in a bar, not having any free tables, sitting down and having a drink and saying, by the way, we don't need to talk, and then you end up meeting his family and you feel like you have found the person that you're potentially going to marry, and you've spoke about having kids with them. Like, that is such a whirlwind, but also, like, it is one of those heartwarming stories. Like, it's like a rom-com kind of story. Anyway, we have the last and final update for this. I am actually going to take my cardigan off because I am starting to get boiling. I'm overheating. The sweat is pouring off of me. But yeah, I'll take a minute to do that. It will be a second for you, and then we will get into the final update for this story, which was on the 4th of July. I'm recording this on the 16th of July, and hopefully maybe it should be posted this week or next. We'll see how the brain's doing. But yeah, let me give a minute and then I'll do part 4 and then I'll wrap it up for the day. Gosh, that feels nice, having some fresh air on my skin. Let's see what part 4 is. I didn't keep the title of this, so it's just part 4. As I've gotten a ton of requests for updates, I figured I would let you guys know how things are going in my world. You know how sometimes a relationship looks amazing at first, but then all the red flags start showing up? This isn't one of these stories, lol. Sorry, that was mean, but I really couldn't resist. And all of like on comments and them saying like you should write a novel, that feels like some series of unfortunate events story start there, where it's like, not everything always ends happy. Just kidding, not this time. This isn't Lemony Snicket this time. Is that who writes if it's a series of unfortunate events, or is that just the guy in the mind? I don't know. Anyway, back to the post. Okay, onto the actual update. Now, we aren't engaged yet. Yes, we have talked about it in the context of how seriously we are taking things. No babies yet either, obviously. So we are diligent about birth control. I want Mike all to myself for a while. So the 4th of July visit to his house party was pretty awesome. We were getting to know everyone last time, and I had better expectations of what I was going into. And I've talked with my therapist about the whole play fighting makes me anxious, because in my childhood home, it wasn't playing thing. I don't want them to ever curb how they act to cater me, and instead, I guess I'll consider it immersion therapy. I think Mike mentioned it anyway, because I didn't see much of it this time, though there were some cheerful threats of doom lobbed about, which I didn't mind at all. I don't mind. There were some casual threats of doom lobbed about. I don't know what that means. His mum is amazing, I'd like to point out. Even if she mums so hard, it makes me weepy. So, background info. I have a really common sounding name spelt really uncommonly. Think Danielle, spelled Danyell, or Jessica, spelled Jesssikah. Because in addition to everything else, my parents decided to be creative when they named me. So although I do sort of like my name, that meant I was a kid who never saw their name personalised on anything. Mike's family, on the other hand, had like a million kids and they all got traditional names, so personalised stuff was huge for them. It kept them from fighting over stuff, I guess. One of the things in their house, because they have a pool, is that each kid's adults now has a personalised beach towel that lives at the house. So we get to their place, it's been a hot drive there, so right after we get in, Mike suggests I go to his room to get changed into a swimsuit so we can have a dip in the pool. I'm thinking, that sounds perfect, right? Some of you may already know where this is going. I get to his room and there is a towel on my bed in my favourite colour with my fucking stupid ass spelled name embroidered onto it, and here I am crying over a goddamn towel whilst he's in the hallway watching and grinning like he's pranked me or some shit. Turns out it was his mum's idea, and she checked with Mike to make sure it was spelled right, so now I have a towel for when I visit because apparently I'm welcome. If I sound cranky, it's just because I'm better at self-deprecation than I am at expressing emotions in a direct way. I am and was a lot like that, but I'm working on it. Yeah. I really am blown away and touched by how much of these people have welcomed me. Mike has already sort of learned to decode the way I talk and joke, which is nice, but the first time he gently said, "That's not humour, that's just putting yourself down, babe," I definitely wanted to go hide under the table. He doesn't let me be mean to myself. That's a good thing partners do, I guess. I wouldn't know. It is. It is a really good thing, and it is something where I have learned that with Eleanor sometimes. We do it to each other. Sometimes we say something and then go, "Oh, that was a wee bit mean. Tone was maybe off. Is that what you were meaning to yourself? Because don't be like that." And I think she was one of the first people that properly did it to me and it actually made me go, yeah, I'm being really mean to myself right now. Wow, thank you for saying that because I wouldn't have noticed it. Again, yes, I am in therapy. I am working on myself. It is not his responsibility to put me back together. It's just something he does naturally. I literally told him one night that I was sorry, I'm kind of broken, and he snorted and said, "At least you can walk," in the most disgusted voice ever and made me laugh. That is honestly, that's so funny because it's honestly like something I would say, but on both sides of the situation, I guess, which then makes it not so funny. Oof. Anyway, I digress as it starts in the next paragraph. So the food was once again amazing, and I kept my promise to teach his mum how to make my cinnamon bun bread pudding, so I felt like I contributed. Insert Ralph Wiggum I'm helping meme. I'll do that. I learned to play Yahtzee, and as it turns out, I'm very good at it. They do a lot of board game things at night when everybody is staying for the week. These people have a lot of board games and puzzles, a whole damn storage closet of things. They also drink like fucking fish and can't hold it, so I'm learning to pace myself. Mike doesn't drink much when we aren't there, so I'm not worried that it's a red flag. The only red flag that I found was that of a Red Sox pennant in his room. Now I realise I may be talking him up a lot, but he is not perfect. He snores, he has a habit of arguing with people on the TV when they make stupid decisions. He sometimes starts talking about things I don't understand and just goes until he realises he's lost me 15 minutes before. And he is fastidiously, that is one word that I feel like means like fastidiously. Well, because it's followed by tidy, I feel like it's like exceptionally, which makes me feel guilty because I have a bad habit to lose. I'm not used to clutter means I can't move through an area, but I'm really trying. I barely spend any time at my own place anymore, and we're definitely looking to move in together sooner rather than later. Yeah, so not that much of an update. No one burned themselves on a firework or anything super exciting. I'm just in an ongoing relationship with a great guy who has a great family, and things continue to look up for us. We head home tonight and we can spend some alone time on Sunday, and hopefully everybody else has a happy and healthy holiday. Edit my extremely unhealthy but delicious cinnamon bacon bun recipe, and I'm not going to read it out, but I will put it on the screen if you want to see it. There was a comment that said, "Please never stop updating us. My family all have these needlepoint Christmas stockings with our names embroidered. When my then boyfriend got his very own as a surprise from my mum, I melted. That beach towel is a big ass deal. They love you, and all of us internet strangers do too." And then there was a comment saying, "It is lovely to hear a happy story. So glad you and your man are doing well. Are things good with you and your bestie?" And OP responded, "Yes, she is still dealing with all of the bad breakup stuff and not looking to date right now, but she's focusing on herself and it's going well. We did one of those drink wine and paint classes. together, and she's a lot closer to who I remember her being. Baby steps, lol, real life doesn't move at Reddit pacing. I'm just trying to see if there was any other good ones that I screenshotted. I absolutely adore love stories, and I absolutely love the towel. I relate as someone with a dysfunctional family. I am now invited to all of my fiancés. What, I'm getting words all wrong today, jeez oh. I am invited to all my fiancés' cousins' big events because I'm the one of the cousins now. You found Mike and you found a beautiful unconditional love of a partner, but you also found the love of an entire family. Thank you for sharing your love story. And I feel like that is a good way to end it, because I feel like that comment kind of sums up how I felt, like family dynamics, and as well as being disabled sometimes, like I definitely used to think when I had the frame on my leg that I was unlovable and that people wouldn't want to be with me because of my scars and my trauma and the things that I came along with. But like I said at the start in that poem, the more I've started to accept myself, I feel like the more people accept me too. And that's not to say that there's not some days where I feel really bad and I do feel like I'm unlovable because I'm disabled, but that's not because I think that that thought is a fact. It's just a bad thought on a bad day, but it is something that I still struggle with, because reading things like that, it does make me go, oh, I wish that something like that could happen, but I'm sober, so I'm not going to be in a bar to meet somebody. And I keep thinking about like going out and doing more like things that interest me, to like go out and meet people and like meet friends, but I'm still just a wee bit scared. But maybe I'll end up getting to that, who knows. But anyway, that is where I am going to end it for today. I hope you enjoyed my poem and this little Reddit story, and I hope you enjoy what is yet to come on the rest of season 2 of the Cripple Chronicles. So, yeah, I'm going to go because I keep messing up my words, and even there, saying Cripple Chronicles felt hard because my mouth is getting dry because I've been yapping so much. So, look after yourselves. There will hopefully be another video in 2 weeks' time, back to regular posting, hopefully. But yeah, love you guys. Have a safe week, month, whatever. Look after yourselves. But yeah, bye!